Welcome back. Today, we're diving into one of the most astonishing, intellectually dense, and honestly, spiritually urgent encounters in the ancient world. On the surface, the story of the Canaanite women approaching Jesus in the Gospels might look like just a simple healing narrative. But actually, scratch that. As we're about to see, this is not a simple miracle. It's an absolute masterclass on cosmic geography, divine abundance, and the sheer unstoppable power of true authority. We are looking at a deliberate, perfectly structured journey from the chaos of a haunted home all the way to the absolute peace of a purified sanctuary.
Okay, let's dive right into this chiastic structure. We're going to map this deliberate journey, starting with the threshold of throneness, moving into the noetic battlefield, hitting the climax at the bread riddle, witnessing translocal kingdom authority, and finally reclaiming Sabbath rest.
So, Part 1. The Threshold of Throneness.
The whole narrative opens with this incredibly heavy, tense reality. Jesus deliberately crosses over into the pagan territories of Tyre and Sidon, literally translating his theology into geography. And right there at the threshold, waiting for him, is a woman experiencing what we can define as throneness. Throneness is basically the existential crisis of your inherited historical location. It's your ancestry, your geography, the covenantal distance that you absolutely did not choose, but it totally defines your starting point. She's been thrown into this deeply burdened, inherited reality.
Mark's Gospel calls her a Greek, a Syrophoenician by birth. But Matthew reaches way back into ancient historical trauma and labeled her explicitly a woman of Canaan. To a first-century ear, that is a heavily loaded, traumatic identity marker. It brings up centuries of theological enmity, pagan idolatry, warfare, the whole shebang. But here is the beautiful reality. Her starting position doesn't dictate her ultimate eschatological destiny. She can't choose her history, right? But she can choose who she approaches.
And this brilliantly illustrates the spatial architecture of the whole crisis. It's like a split screen of two separated domestic spaces. Over here, we've got House A, where Jesus enters seeking hiddenness. And over there, House B, the woman's home, which has been invaded by an unclean, decreational spirit that's holding her young daughter captive. The agonizing question hanging over the text is this: can the king's authority actually penetrate the physical and ethnic distance between these two totally separate houses?
Which brings us to Part 2, the noetic battlefield.
So the physical geography shifts into this intense spiritual landscape. We are stepping into a highly pressurized zone of extreme interpretive warfare. The woman approaches Jesus, and her cry is just a stunning theological confession. She shouts, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David." Think about that for a second. A Canaanite woman is perfectly addressing the Jewish Messiah by his royal covenantal title. But look really closely at the pronoun she uses. She doesn't say, "Have mercy on my daughter." She says, "Have mercy on me." This is relational ontology at work. The demonic captivity of her child has literally become the mother's own existential suffering.
But how does the compassionate Messiah actually respond to this brilliant confession? With terrifying silence, Jesus answers, "Not a word." It creates this massive vacuum of ambiguity. It's a total cognitive ambush, testing her perception. The enemy's whisper right now would definitely be, "He is indifferent. Your ancestry completely disqualifies you." Meanwhile, you've got the disciples making all this dismissive noise, pleading with Jesus to just send her away.
We have a massive contrast in perception happening here. The disciples, the ultimate insiders, view human suffering as a mere social inconvenience. It's just an annoying noise to be sent away. They're operating out of this completely closed, scarcity mindset. But the mother, the ultimate outsider, views this suffering through relational ontology and sees it as a direct, undeniable opportunity for divine mercy. She absolutely refuses to let Jesus' silence become a cognitive stronghold.
All right, moving to Part 3, the bread riddle. Let's pause and see how this builds, because her persistence pushes the narrative to the dead center of our chiastic map. We've moved from the throneness of Stage A through the noetic battlefield of Stage B, and now we're right here at the absolute climax, Stage C, the bread riddle. Everything pivots on what happens in this exact moment, right before the structure mirrors itself to resolve the crisis.
Jesus finally breaks his silence with an incredibly intense domestic metaphor. He says, "It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs." Now, we cannot sanitize this language. It is a severe salvation historical boundary. He is drawing a stark, unmissable line between the children of Israel who sit at the covenant table and the Gentile outsiders.
So I have to ask you, how do you answer an absolute theological wall? Seriously, most people would just walk away offended, right? Most people would scream that the boundary is unfair. The disciples, they just pack it up. So how does this Canaanite woman, operating under extreme interpretive pressure, answer this wall?
Now, what's really interesting is her absolute brilliance in this next moment. She replies, "Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table." Look at that masterstroke connective, yet even. She doesn't deny the boundary. She doesn't demand to be reclassified as a child. She accepts the metaphor completely, but she brilliantly finds an opening right inside of it.
Her argument is built entirely on a theology of divine abundance. She totally understands a non-zero-sum kingdom economy. She knows that rejecting the false binary of scarcity is absolutely crucial. If the children at the master's table are being filled to the absolute brim, then crumbs aren't a rival meal. They're just the inevitable biological overflow of an inexhaustible table. Delivering her daughter will not deprive Israel of a single loaf. Why? Because just one crumb of the true king's authority contains the sovereign power of the entire loaf. It's incredible.
Next up, Part 4. Translocal Kingdom Authority.
She solves the riddle, the tension completely breaks, and Jesus openly gasps in admiration at her faith. He looks at her and issues a definitive word that perfectly mirrors his earlier silence. He says, "For this saying, go your way, the demon has gone out of your daughter." This isn't just a nice comfort. This is an immediate translocal eviction notice.
To really grasp what just happened here, we have to look at a hidden linguistic key. The Greek verb used is exaleluthen. It's in the perfect tense. Now, in Greek grammar, this denotes an action that was completed in the past but has an ongoing, permanently settled resulting state in the present. Think about that for a second. Before this mother takes a single step back toward her house, the spiritual eviction is already an irreversible reality across physical space.
We are basically witnessing a chain reaction of anthropocosmic resonance. Step 1, the sovereign decree from Christ in House A. Step 2, spiritual liberation, where the geographic distance is instantly crossed by His word alone. And Step 3, embodied rest for the daughter back in House B. Jesus doesn't need to travel to the house. He doesn't enter a physical duel with the demon. Why? Because His authority is jurisdictional, not just confrontational. Geographical distance means absolutely nothing to the jurisdictional authority of the true king.
And finally, Part 5. Reclaiming Sabbath Rest.
We journey back to House B, completely mirroring the initial chaos of her thrownness, but this time we find total peace. Mark records that the mother returns to find her daughter lying on the bed. And here is our second Greek key, beblemenen. It's the perfect passive participle of the root verb balo. Normally, when this root is used in demonic contexts in the Gospels, it describes a violent, convulsive throwing down of a human body. But here, the king has completely redeemed the verb. It is stabilized. The daughter isn't being violently thrown. She has been gently placed in a permanent, ongoing state of peaceful rest.
And this is the ultimate goal of divine warfare, restored creaturely ordinariness. In the ancient world, a bed touched by an unclean spirit was a site of maximum Levitical uncleanness and contagion. But look at what happens. The king's holiness travels across physical distance, remotely overpowers the unclean spirit, and instantly transforms that bed into a completely purified domestic sanctuary. No way the darkness wins that fight.
So the crucial point is this. The narrative is all about the surgical, redemptive separation of the human captive from the demonic squatter. Jesus wages a surgical, redemptive war. The Canaanite woman and her child are not the enemy. The occupying spirit is. The boundary of distance is crossed effortlessly, and the kingdom's abundance completely answers what darkness invaded.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. If even the crumbs of the master's table contain enough infinite sovereign power to cross geographical borders and completely conquer darkness, what false boundaries of scarcity are you letting define your reality? Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.